Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and welcome to my monthly journal pages. Today we will be flipping through my December pages and chatting about the journal spreads, techniques, and ephemera I created to connect with my personal tarot practice last month. So as I mentioned in my monthly reflection video, December was quite a busy month for me, and I didn't have a lot of time to work on my tarot journaling. So I just shook my practice up a little bit because I didn't have a ton of time, so I thought I might as well make the most of the time that I do have, and I decided to do some kind of different spreads. So this is the last entries that we will have in this book. This is my dot grid journal that I've been using, my bound journal that I've been using all throughout 2019. This is the second one, and I do have a whole video which includes a flip through of both of those journals together. So this is kind of the completion because now we're through December and I finished up the pages for that month. So we have just kind of my intro page, and I did talk about in my 2019 journaling reflection video how I was going to change this up a little bit. Over here I have the decks that I worked with consistently throughout the month, or the One Tarot, Oracle, and Lenormand that I worked with. And all of these decks that you'll see here I talk about in my December reflection video if you want to find out more about each of them. Then I have the decks that I used each of the 5 weeks. And here I have my monthly card, my final card for my year ahead spread that I did at the beginning of 2019, my new moon intention, and of course I come back at the end of the month and write my reflections here. So moving into the first week, I have my weekly Lenormand card and my one Oracle card pull for the week. And I had started combining these two pages in November, these two spreads into one page in November, because I was running out of space in my journal and I was afraid I wasn't going to make it through to the end of the year if I didn't kind of start condensing a little bit. And actually I think for these two practices, it actually works quite well because they were very quick and I did them together. So it kind of made sense to put them all together on one page, and it was helping me kind of condense my book because I was running out of space. So moving into the first week of December, I decided to do a nested reading that I had discovered from Natalia at Ouroboros here on YouTube. And she did this wonderful video, or I think a couple different videos on her nested reading technique. And I thought that was really interesting. So I went ahead and did that as well. I do have a whole video on how I put this spread together in my journal. So I have, this is the first page, the first reading that I did. The first day I pulled 2 tarot, 1 oracle for what to embrace the energy of the reading, and then what to release. And then I expanded upon that over the next few days. So then I think it was the next day, I did a reading below. So I pulled 2 cards below my 2 of Swords. This was my original pull from the original reading here. So I pulled the 2 of Swords. And I pulled 2 cards to dig deeper into that message. And then I reflected on what those cards meant to me. The next day, I believe I did now I can't remember because it's been a little while. The next day or a day or two later, I pulled, I think I skipped a day in between. I pulled 2 cards from my original to go deeper into my original King of Cups card that I had pulled. So again, going back to my original what to release was the King of Cups. And I pulled 2 more cards to kind of dig deeper into that message a couple of days later. And then I finally wrapped it up with pulling a second oracle card to kind of sum up message, which I wrote down here. And then I did a reflection on the reading as a whole. So I did kind of took that base idea that Natalia had mentioned in her video, and I kind of just did it in my own way. And I think that that's really a wonderful thing to remember, that when we see these types of videos, or we see, even with journalings, with spreads, it doesn't matter, that it's great to take your inspiration from what other people have done, but it's okay to do your own thing with them too. And I think that that's really important to remember. So that was kind of how I did the nested reading. I did my original 3 card pull, which we saw at the top here, which was here on this page. And then I pulled the 2 cards for a deeper message underneath each of those for each card, and then my final message as an oracle. And again, like I said, I have a whole video of actually putting this spread into this journal on my Facebook group, which will be linked in the description box below. So if you want to check out how I do that, this is something that I'm going to be doing moving into 2020, where we'll be doing some more of those videos here on this channel. So I'll show you how I actually go about the process of putting things into my journal. We'll go into a little bit more in depth in that. So the next week, the second week of December, I did my weekly Lenormand and my my oracle pull, and it's kind of a basic thing over here on this page. And then on this page was kind of a mess. I just didn't like the way that it was turning out. I did my one big reading with, I used the Influence of Angels, the Divine Doors, and the Golden Tarot to create this kind of wrap-up spread that I did, or this sort of checking in spread that I did. And as I was putting it in my journal, like, I was not liking what was going on up here. And I just kind of kept layering and layering paper and washi and all of that to just try and get it to something that I liked the look of it. And to be perfectly honest with you, I never really settled on I like the look of it. But it got to the point where it was just like, it's good enough. Like, seriously, it's good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just really needs to be in here. I like it to be pretty, but it's more important that I get the information in here so that I can go back and look at it and reflect on it later on if I need to or if I want to. But really, I'm not happy with the way this page turned out. And this to me, and I keep pages like this in my journal because to me, this is a reminder that my journal doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be functional. And, you know, we go through all of this effort to make our journals really beautiful, or some of us do. I do. This is as much an artistic, creative endeavor as it is a tarot journal. So it's kind of all in one. It's an art journal, it's a tarot journal, it's a scrapbook journal, it's a bullet journal, it's everything all in one because I incorporate all those different things into this journal. But the most important thing about this journal is that it actually works for me. So even when I do spreads in here that I'm like, I really don't like the look of that, the important information is down here, right? So I have my cards here, that's important, and I have just a little rundown of which ones they are. I have a little tag that I pulled from one of the Divine Doors, and then just my basic impressions of this reading. That's the important stuff, right? That's what I really need to remember, to be able to look back on. So all of this other stuff is just, it's there to be pretty. It's fun. I like to do it. It helps me to connect creatively with my practice. And I enjoy the process of journaling in this manner, but sometimes it doesn't work out for me and sometimes I don't like it. And it just ends up being kind of, it is what it is. And part of journaling for me is learning to let go of those imperfections and learning to just be okay with a page being in my journal that I'm not happy with. Back a couple of years ago, I would have torn this out and I would have started over. And I'm working on embracing my own imperfection. That's something that I definitely struggle with. And so using my journals helps me to remind myself to embrace that imperfection as well. That everything doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be functional. And sometimes good enough is good enough. That's totally side tangent. Just wanted to throw that one in there. So the third week I did my same weekly Lenormand, and I was using the White Mojo and then the Queen of the Moon Oracle. I really do like how this page came out. I can tell by looking at my journals, and this is one of the fun things, that as I was moving into the final weeks of December, I was working on my bullet journal, and you can start to sort of see some of those bullet journal influences come into my tarot journal. I do journal them in very different ways. So as we'll see, because I'm going to start incorporating some of my bullet journaling into this channel as well. It's not 100% tarot. It is more about planning and projects. I do incorporate some tarot into it, but I thought it might be fun to incorporate that into this channel as well, so you can see that other side of things, because this is my tarot journal tends to be more of this sort of collagey, messy, organic, fluid type of process, wherein I don't think about what goes into this journal a whole lot before I do it. I just sit down and whatever comes out on the page comes out on the page. My bullet journal, on the other hand, is a completely planned and precise project. It is my planner. And so I thought it might be fun to show you the difference between the two. But I can see by the way that things start incorporating themselves, I kind of do merge things from time to time. And I could definitely tell that during this time I was starting to work in my 2020 bullet journal and getting it set up. And I can see some of those influences start to roll over because I do a lot more with pen work. With illustration in my bullet journal, and I don't do this sort of heavy collaging. So, and what I mean by that is you can see there's lots of pen work down here. There's a stamp here, you know, some drawn lines and things like that. And it's starting to pull in a little bit more of that minimalistic aesthetic that I tend to use in my bullet journal. So whereas this is more creative expression, my bullet journal is definitely about things being structured, things being planned. My bullet journal is about keeping things on track and on task. And so for me, that needs to be very structured and it needs to be very clear. And it doesn't have that same messy sort of free flow organic feel that my tarot journals do. So I thought it might be interesting just to see the two different sides of that, which we'll take a look at here in some upcoming videos. So anyway, I'm totally off on tangents this video, and I do apologize, but here's my weekly Lenormand and Oracle readings. And then this was the week that I started working with the Chronicles of Destiny. I'd had the deck for quite some time and I hadn't ever gotten around to working with it. So I read the book, which I absolutely enjoyed. I think it's my favorite part of the whole deck. The cards are great and I really enjoyed the readings, but I did a few practice readings from spreads within the book, and then I finally did the story spread where I sat down and actually did the reading. To me, this particular deck is very kind of Lenormand-y, so again, it's that quick direct messages that I didn't feel the need to really expand on it a whole lot, so I was able to kind of just keep things very concise and in line, and then just sort of add a little bit of the kind of papery, scrapbooky thing on the side. But again, this journal, my tarot journal, is not planned. It's not, I mean, it has a basic structure and a basic plan, which I had talked about in my 2019 journal reflection video. But as the pages are created, it's a very organic process, and I don't think about what's going on a page before it actually gets there. It just kind of happens. So then we move into the 4th week of December, which was the week of Christmas. So it was a really busy week for us, but I did manage to do some little bit of journaling here. And you can see, again, I can see those bullet journal influences kind of infusing their way into here, into this journal as well. Although I did do some scrapbooking as well, but so I have my Lenormand reading, my Oracle pull for the week, and then I did my holiday recipe for joy spread, which is available on my website. If you haven't checked out, I have a whole bunch of spreads on my website too that I've done over the years. So this was just a pull that I did using the Christmas tarot, which was really fun, and I did that on Christmas Eve. And then finally moving into the last couple of days really of December, I definitely, again, you can see that moving into that more illustrative look, a little bit less of the scrapbooky, more of the illustration look. But again, that was primarily because I was doing a lot of work in my bullet journal, and so that kind of just sort of merged itself and transferred over into this journal as well, which is totally fine. I have my weekly Lenormand, my card pull. And then I have just a one reading that I put in here using the World Spirit Tarot. And this was just a kind of moving into 2020 spread that I did, a basic 6-card spread of kind of like, what do I need to know moving into the new year? That is the end of the month. That is the end of the year. And I am really looking forward to moving into 2019. So just take a quick flip through. So we had a lot of fun pages, but I definitely didn't have time to do my usual kind of expanded readings. I didn't do daily card pulls for the most part. I just kind of worked with the decks in ways that were a little bit more organic, a little bit more fluid. And it actually did seem to work really well for me. And there were some things that I think that I want to take into 2020, into my tarot journaling practice, which is something that we'll be talking about here in a little while. So I did also make a little insert, which I have talked about in a couple of different other videos, where I have been using these little inserts separately from my tarot journals, and these are allowing me to kind of pull it out of these big bulky journals and work with them separately, which has kind of been the influence for what I'm going to be doing journaling in 2020. So this one was for the Balanced Tarot Challenge by Lionhearts on Instagram, and I used the influence of the angels. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I did not finish this challenge. I just simply ran out of time, and then by the time I was able to take some time to come back to it, I just really wasn't feeling like doing it. So I just didn't. I did do, I think, the first like 4 sets. I think I did these 4 sets of readings, and I just kind of pasted, took a photocopy of my cards, printed them out, and then just, wrote my little reflections back in them. And that was as far as I got. And so here's the rest of the book that didn't end up getting used. And that's okay because, December is quite busy. I mean, you can see there's a lot of them that I didn't do. And it's something that I could go back and do later on if I wanted to. But at this point, I'm not, these challenges for me are supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be a way for me to get to know a deck, to work with the deck, and to, of course, gain some insights along the way. But I think it's also really important not to beat ourselves up when those sort of expectations kind of fall away, when we don't end up being able to do the things that we want to do. December is a really busy month, so it's really hard to manage everything that we have to do. It's the end of the year. For this particular one, it was the end of a decade, and that was kind of a big deal for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And I think it's really important to allow ourselves that freedom and that flexibility, ability to be open to the changes that life brings about, right? So I wasn't able to finish this, but that's okay because I still have the ones that I did do, and I really did enjoy the work that I did do with it. So I think that that's really what's most important about the whole process. Thank you for joining me for this flip through my December journal pages. If you'd like to find out more about any of the decks I used this last month, check out my December reflections video, which you'll find linked in the description box below. I hope you enjoyed this flip through my journal and will join me again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.